was also very wise in thinking about this, is that we have a cinematographer, somebody who actually goes there with us, and actually that's he's part of the group too, is to film and document that. And so we have a lot of these documentaries. Now the thing is, we capture a lot of footage, but it's not just just to capture it and do it. You have to take a lot of that footage and package it in a way that has powerful meaning, and that's really what the challenge is going to be, because we have tons and tons of information, but we've got to put it in a way that reaches people, and we've got a few of them that are out now, that probably can share those, and you can listen to some of the testimonials of particularly, like, just give you an example. One of my students went back with Tony, I think it was last year, and he had asked me about the students that he invited, and I said, which ones? And I said, well, this particular student, because she's like your typical one that you would get that's struggling with this identity and who they are. And what was real interesting was that I thought she would be a really good candidate, and it turned out right. She was a really good candidate, because when she came back, it was real interesting, because she comes in my office the first day, and she was really excited, and she was, I know who I am. She was, I'm Filipino. I mean, really loud, and I'm like, the door's open. It's like, who's this dude? I'm a Filipino, and but that means is that it's more of a, it's not to say I'm a Filipino, I'm not American. It's just I'm a Filipino. It's getting closure to their identity, so now they can move forward, and that's part of the problem with a lot of the films, is that they know they're American, but they know they're Filipino, but they don't understand that part of it, of who they are. And this is what's really important, because now they feel whole. They can now be a person. And that's the problem with a lot of our second gens and third gens, because they don't feel whole. There's that, actually, not the WHO, there's a HOLE in who they are. And so we can't afford to send every Phil-Am back to the Philippines to get this kind of experience. So that's the purpose of what the school is about, is to really kind of do that in that way, is to teach them about, that, bring all those pieces together. So then all of a sudden it just clicks in their mind, I know who I am, I understand everything about my life, now I can move on. And that's really what we want. We're not trying to change people's minds. We're not trying to change, we're just trying to really help people become more whole. And by doing that, as they become more whole, then we as a community, we as in the diaspora, and eventually our whole country becomes whole. And that's part of, I think, the history, the problem with the Philippines. We ask these questions, we've got these big numbers in this country, why are we not having that influence? Because we as a people are not whole. We as a people are very, we're out there on our own. We're out there doing our own thing, There's no sense of Filipino. There's no, we all in our minds have our own, idea of that. But there's something that binds us all together. There's something that connects us all together. Yet we're not finding it in that way. So hopefully that's what this idea of the school is, is to really provide that opportunity. And then beyond that, we have other ideas where we want to go beyond it, but we can start somewhere. This is very simple.
In 2013, we invited them in a pilot class, in a trial class. And Ray was one of the graduates of that class. And I want to present Sal as the other graduate of the class.
First alumni.
She's assuming we passed the class. She's also assuming we remember Tagalog.
And then Felix, okay,
Yeah,
Sal.
but I'd like to say a few words. To me, it's the Filipino school really represents the sense of consciousness Tony Elias has gone through.
Oh.
And it really does represent a lot of Ray, maybe Fee, I can't speak for you all, but it's the same experiences that we do have, because just like Tony, he knew he was Filipino, but no language, no culture. I can basically say that's what I represent, no language, no culture. So getting into the Filipino community, when we saw the existence of Chinese schools, Japanese schools, and that kind of a thing, and we did wonder why we didn't ever have anything. And then you think about our community, what we've tried to do all these years. You know, because I remember I think the San Diego Filipino community back in the early '70s had the Tagalog class at Fava Hall.
Yeah,
And then Mrs. Picasso was teaching it.
yeah.
She had the same idea, but because we were all in the class, so it was like little kids, old kids, I was one of the older kids. And I said to myself, what am I doing here? You know, because little kids learn so much faster than I do. But I think that what's important to me about this whole Filipino school was, you know, being involved with the community for so long, it's always been a disconnect between me and the Philippines. And when Tony brought up the issue of Gawad Kalinga, which really is the genesis of everything that, to me, in terms of what this represents, because that was really the first time where there was a connection between poverty in the Philippines. Because when I think about it, I think every Filipino has to look at their own personal experiences. And my personal experience would have been going back the first time in '76 when I was in my early 20s, thinking how, wow, everyone treats me so well. I must be from America, or why, I feel so tall, I've never been this tall. And they just treat you so differently, and it's a good treatment, but then you look at, when I went through I think probably the thing that hit me about poverty back there was when we were in the jeepneys choking on the air, was guys on the street selling cigarettes, or individual cigarettes, not a pack of cigarettes, individual cigarettes.
You'll see.
And so it's like, you know, just seeing that and then realizing how lucky, I think our parents, well, how lucky I was and how brave our parents were to leave the Philippines and join the military, or however they got here. And so, you know, to me, me and Felix did the Gawad Kalinga trip in
You have two.
in
Palawan?
Yeah, Palawan. And we actually went to you know, it's not in the city. It really was in the forest. We really did work with the community, and that Gawad Kalinga's goal of alleviating poverty is just tremendous, and I think this is a natural progression of not only us learning about ourselves here in the U.S., but tying that up back to the Philippines, because I've watched so much Filipino channel lately, even though I watched the TV channel that's in English so I can figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
But just watching that and thinking about what's happening in our community, it really needs to be some vehicle, some connection. And the Filipino school really makes sense to me in terms of what it can accomplish. And I think we have I think our community has, well, put it this way, when the ambassador came, the local ambassador came to San Diego, had a little flyer that someone put out that we make, what, $85,000 a year, our average salary and all that stuff. And I said, do we have any problems? Because I think that's part of the problem is we're so comfortable, or our families are, not all of them, of course, but some of them are, that we feel like we don't have problems. So if I don't have any problems, what's identity? It's not a problem. That just happens to be my experience. And real quick, like I have three brothers, both of them were all raised in the U.S. They have no sense of, they know they're Filipino, but they have no consciousness of being Filipino. So even though this is recorded, I'm kind of like, I'm throwing them under the bus. But I think they're normal. I think that's just who they are. And there's nothing wrong with that. So it's almost like, how can we get the ones who do not know at all realize that's the connection they ought to make if they want to make it. And for the Filipino school, it's probably more important to really look at it because, you know, some of us all have, people have grandchildren, some are half, some are a quarter Filipino, and based on how they look, that might determine how much they know about themselves. And that's kind of scary, because a generation from now, you might be 1/3 Filipino, 1/4 Filipino, and you have no idea. And if I was raised here and I don't know the language, I don't know the history, how am I going to communicate that to my kids? And I didn't, because I didn't have that back then, which is interesting to say the least. So,
Okay, Felix,
Yes.
your experience in the class.
Well, first of all, I've been teaching Filipino history and culture for about 37 years. You know, then when I went to the Philippines with Sal, you know, there was a connect. I mean, you know, We get to read about the books and talk about it from books and research and videos. We actually go in there, just kind of open my up and that's my people, the connection. Then they take to school, and they learn all the bad words from these guys. No, just kidding, just kidding. They got even deeper in terms of the culture and the language, how it connects to being Filipino. And it's interesting when the students take my class, they only find out they're Filipino when they go to college. Even back in the 1970s, when I first taught the class at night, we had all these AdCop Navy guys.
That's right.
Yeah, AdCop guys, right? And I talk about Filipino history. A lot of them didn't know, but they knew a lot about American history. Okay, American, because of our colonial mentality, right? So, and we had a really good exchange, but it was really interesting. Those guys would tell me, you know, not a lot about the Philippines, just here. Right? Then we get to Phil Lambs, and like you said, we're losing our culture. And that's what by Sal and Ray and all of us, we got involved, we got back in college, we kept on going, we're still here doing community work. And that's our mission for our life, you know. And the school really kind of helped us add on to what we know about our culture, being proud of it and share it. We learned a lot about sharing in that class. And that's our goal for the school, is sharing, okay, empower. Okay.
So when they ask if the school is about, magtuturo ng Tagalog, and we say no, because the key benefits, as we have in the brochure, is history, culture, and language. And the two teachers who taught the pilot class are, of course, Sally and Adore, who had these students. So, Sally, you can say something about the class.
Yes, well, I feel honored for being chosen as the teacher. But one thing that I had in me was the passion for the Filipino language, Filipino culture. And that is the same passion that brought me in introducing the first Filipino class ever in the San Diego Unified School District in high school.